Okay, so you want to own a casino. The math sounds unbeatable before you even open the doors. Every single game on the floor is mathematically tilted in your favor. Not by luck, not by cheating, by design. People walk in knowing this and hand over their money anyway. It sounds like the closest thing to a guaranteed profit machine in this entire series. Here's the problem. In January 2015, the operating company behind one of the most famous casino names in the world filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, carrying $18.4 billion in debt, the result of a leveraged buyout that had seemed brilliant 7 years earlier. So what actually happened? Here's the idea that explains almost everything else in this video. A casino isn't really betting against you. It's renting you time at a table where the math is quietly tilted in its favor, and the entire business, the free drinks, the lack of clocks, the layout of the floor, is built around extending that rental for as long as possible. There are a few real versions here. A tribal casino operates under a state gaming compact, with its own separate regulatory structure. A commercial riverboat or state-licensed casino sits in the middle, common across states that legalized gambling gradually starting in the 1990s. And a destination resort casino, the Las Vegas or Macau-style model, combines gaming with hotel rooms, dining, and entertainment as one integrated property. This video is about the commercial land-based casino, the format most people actually picture. Licensing alone can run from $1 million in a smaller jurisdiction to over $500 million in a market like New York, which set a minimum license fee of $500 million for its downstate casino licenses. Construction for a mid-sized casino resort typically runs $150 to $300 million, while a major integrated resort can run $1.5 to $3 billion once hotel towers, gaming floors, and entertainment venues are all included. Gaming equipment and surveillance technology alone can add $50 to $150 million. Add pre-opening expenses, marketing, and the 12 to 18 months of costs that pile up before a single chip is sold. And this is one of the most capital-intensive businesses in this entire series before it earns a single dollar. Every game on the floor has a house edge, the average percentage of every wager the casino expects to keep over the long run. Blackjack sits around 0.5 to 2% with optimal play. Roulette runs 2.7 to 5.26%. Baccarat sits around 1.06 to 1.24%. Slot machines carry the widest range, 2 to 15%, with the smallest denomination machines often carrying the highest edge of all. None of these numbers guarantee the house wins any single hand or spin. What they guarantee, through simple volume, is that across millions of bets a day, the casino's results become almost perfectly predictable, even though any individual player's night is completely unpredictable. This is the law of large numbers doing the actual work, not luck and not rigged machines. Here's the part of this business that looks completely backwards from the outside. Casinos routinely allocate 30 to 40% of a player's theoretical loss, the amount the house edge predicts they'll lose over a session, straight back to that player in the form of comps, free rooms, free meals, free drinks, show tickets. On the surface, this looks like giving away a huge chunk of the profit. It isn't. A player who checks out early because the room felt cold and impersonal generates far less lifetime volume than a player who feels genuinely taken care of and stays at the table for 6 more hours. The casino isn't being generous. It's buying more time for the math to work, because the house edge only turns into real money after enough bets are placed, and comps are the tool that keeps players placing them. For decades, gaming revenue was the whole story. It increasingly isn't. Modern integrated resorts often generate close to half of total revenue from hotel rooms, dining, retail, nightclubs, and entertainment, rather than the gaming floor itself. This isn't a side hustle bolted onto a casino. It's a structural necessity, because a property with $1.5 to $3 billion in construction costs and debt service simply can't be carried by gaming revenue alone, no matter how favorable the house edge is on every table. The gaming floor pulls people in the door. Everything else in the building is designed to keep extracting value once they're there. Licensing isn't a one-time hurdle either. Casinos operate under some of the heaviest ongoing regulatory oversight of any business in this series. Background investigations on investors and executives, continuous anti-money laundering compliance, surveillance requirements covering every square foot of the gaming floor, and audits of every count room where cash gets tallied. None of this is optional, and none of it is cheap, but it exists for a simple reason. A business built on moving enormous enormous amounts of cash with a mathematically guaranteed long-run profit is exactly the kind of business regulators watch most closely. Take a mid-sized commercial casino with a gaming floor generating $300,000 a day in total wagers across slots and tables at a blended average hold of around 8%. That's roughly $24,000 a day, or about $8.76 million a year in gross gaming revenue alone, before any hotel, dining, or entertainment income is added on top. Against that, payroll, comps, licensing fees, marketing, and debt service on the original construction routinely consume the majority of that revenue. Miss your projected volume by even 15 to 20%, and a property financed on the assumption of steady, predictable hold can move from comfortably profitable to underwater within a single difficult year, because so much of the cost structure, the debt service most of all, doesn't shrink just because fewer people walked through the door. Look at what happened to Caesars Entertainment. In 2008, private equity firms Apollo Global Management and TPG Capital completed a leveraged buyout of the company, then known as Harrah's Entertainment, in a deal valued at roughly $30 billion, one of the largest leveraged buyouts in history, timed just before the global financial crisis hit. The deal loaded the company with enormous debt, betting that Vegas-style gaming revenue would keep growing fast enough to service it. It didn't happen on that timeline. By January 2015, Caesars Entertainment Operating Company, the subsidiary holding most of the actual casino properties, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, carrying $18.4 billion in debt. What followed wasn't a quiet restructuring. It became a multi-year legal war between Apollo and TPG on one side and a group of hedge funds holding Caesars' distressed debt, including Elliott Management and David Tepper's Appaloosa Management, on the other. The junior creditors accused Caesars' private equity owners of moving valuable assets between subsidiaries specifically to shield them from creditors before the bankruptcy filing, a claim serious enough that a Harvard Business School case study still uses it to teach students exactly this kind of defensive maneuver. By the time the case settled, Apollo and TPG had handed over roughly $950 million worth of equity to bondholders just to end the fight, and creditor recoveries on some debt classes jumped from 39 cents on the dollar to 66 cents once the settlement was reached. Nobody stopped gambling in Las Vegas during any of this. The casinos kept their lights on and their tables full the entire time. Caesars failed not because the house edge stopped working, but because the debt used to buy the company in 2008 outran the cash flow available to pay it back, and no mathematical advantage on a blackjack table can outrun a balance sheet that large. In the good year, gaming volume holds steady. Comps are targeted carefully at players whose extended play genuinely pays for the giveaway, non-gaming revenue from hotel and dining stays strong, and debt payments were sized conservatively against realistic, not best-case projections. A property generating $8.76 million in gaming revenue, plus a similar amount in non-gaming income, can comfortably clear its costs with room to spare. In the realistic year, nothing dramatic happens at first. A new competitor opens 2 exits down the highway and splits the regional customer base. Comp spending creeps up because floor staff hand out more freebies to keep loyalty numbers looking healthy, even to players who weren't going to leave anyway. Online and mobile gambling options continue pulling casual players away from the physical floor. None of it makes headlines, but total revenue slides 10 to 15% below plan, and because debt service and fixed operating costs barely move at all, that revenue decline falls almost entirely to the bottom line, turning what should have been a profitable year into one that barely breaks even, on the exact same gaming floor, with the exact same house edge on every single table. That's the business. The house doesn't need to win every hand. It just needs enough hands, over enough time, from enough players, and almost everything about the building, the free drinks, the missing clocks, the comps, exists to make sure there's enough time.